Can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat Sleep Boxing Repeat.
Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. It's me, Niall. Delighted as always to be joined by Thomas and Owen. And we're here in big fight breakdown mode for a huge lightweight world title fight as the WBC champion, Shakur Stevenson, puts his unbeaten record on the line against another unbeaten fighter, the dangerous Mexican William Zepeda, on July 12th in Queens, New York, of course, part of Ring 3, a huge card. Also world title action with Alberto Puello against Subriel Matias, and then you've got Hamza Shiraz against Edgar Berlanga in a really explosive one. But yeah, we'll be giving our thoughts on this big WBC title fight. Two unbeaten, someone's always got to go, as they say. A fascinating clash of styles. So yeah, we'll be breaking down, deep diving into this one and seeing where it might be won and lost. So yeah, Thomas, Owen, good to have you on as always. Let's jump straight into this one. Let's start with the champion here. We'll talk about Shakur Stevenson, and it's a big topic of conversation in terms of the lightweight division and his standards in the lightweight division. You know, he is the WBC champion, but you've got other names, big names, Gervonta Davis being the main one. Although he's coming off a bad result in his eyes against Lamont Roach last time out with the draw. You've got Keyshawn Davis, who looks phenomenal. You know, the young upstart, but he's a world champion now. He looks outstanding. What's your thoughts, Thomas? I'll start with you on this one. Is Shakur Stevenson the best lightweight in the world for you at the minute?
I usually like to see them fight each other before I make that call, but I do think that um, Shakur is the best out of all the champs and the top contenders. I would pick him against any one of them, even if it isn't, even if I, see him struggling or don't see it being as wide. I do think that I would pick him against um, anybody in the division, any champion, any contender. So I do think that puts him at the number one spot for me. I just think that, he has, um, obviously he's not a big puncher or anything, but he does have that supreme technical ability and defensive prowess, and I think that is far above everyone else in the division. So I would I would put him at number one.
Yeah, interesting take. Can't really argue. It's also what I forgot to mention there is we're in a post Lomachenko lightweight division now as well. You know, Lomachenko got out there at the top of his game. So yeah, Owen, I'll throw the same question over to you. Is it Shakur for you, the number one at 135? Is it Tank or is it someone else? Is it the likes of a Keyshawn Davis? Let us know.
I'd say, yeah, I'd probably go with Shakur being the number one in the division at the moment. You never know what Tank's gonna do, how he's gonna turn up. Then like you say, you have got like Keyshawn Davis, Andy Cruz is gonna be knocking on the door sooner rather than later. Um, for world titles, and it'll be interesting to see him. You know, one of the best amateurs we've ever seen. Um, looking to fast track to titles, but I'd say at the moment probably is, yeah, Shakur Stevenson. And at present, I would back him, like Thomas said, against pretty much anyone in the division. But it will be interesting to see once Keyshawn Davis is ready, once Andy Cruz is ready to challenge for titles. I think the division may potentially open up a little bit more.
Yeah, Andy Cruz is another name that I shamefully forgot to mention there. You know, Andy Cruz, talent-wise, could be the best of the lot, to be quite honest with you. It's just a hot. I pray that he gets these big fights soon. I worry that he won't. I worry that he'll be seen as who needs him, you know, way too high risk, low reward. But yeah, in terms of what you both said, I think Shakur is the one for me. As you said, Thomas, in terms of ability wise, you know, he gets a lot of flack for his kind of style not being the most exciting, but he's one of those that I think people really appreciate him more after he's gone from the sport. Maybe he is a phenomenal fighter. There's no doubt about that. And the only one that kind of compared to him for me would have been Tank Davis. But on as you said, if you had asked me, before the Lamont Roach fight, I would have struggled to pick between Shakur and Tank, but that fight was a big disappointment from Davis. Not only the fight, his mentality now seems to be maybe he has one foot out the door, whereas you have Shakur Stevenson is banging in his prime and focused on the task at hand, and Tanks seems to be, as I say, maybe looking at what's next after boxing, but. Yeah, Shakur for me is the one, and as you say, hopefully we get to see these big fights soon. But this is a big fight that he has to get past. He's got William Zepeda, and I'm very curious to talk to you about this fight. I really am. As I say, it's a fascinating clash of styles. Oh, and I'll stick with you on this one. A lot of people have said for a long time, well, before the Tevin Farmer fight, that the kind of buzzsaw, exciting pressure style of Williams Zepeda could be the one to make Shakur Stevenson come unstuck. Would you agree with that? Is this the biggest stylistic problem for Shakur at 135?
Pre Tevin Farmer and Tevin Farmer 2 fights, yes. I still think it's interesting, but I think the likes of Andy Cruz, when they're at the level, a couple more fights time, I think he would pose a lot higher threat than than Zepeda would currently. Out of the current crop, obviously Tank, like we say, you never know what he's going to do. For example, so when you've got fighters like that, it's Zepeda is interesting, but Tevin Farmer dropped him, and that was the first fight, very, very, very close fight. I think someone like Shakur's got on his team have got to be looking at fights like that and be thinking you should be dismantling this guy. You should be winning every round and avoiding it. But he can punch, and he can punch. So he throws a lot of punches as well. Zepeda, as me and Thomas were saying off camera, a lot of spiteful punches. That could possibly be his downfall in this fight if he goes looking for the knockout and windmilling, haymakers, etc. But I think it'll be interesting to see how Shakur deals with Zepeda throwing a ridiculous volume of punches, looking to get the knockout.
Yeah, it's can't argue with that. Thomas, I'll throw it over to you. Would you agree with Alan, or would you think that this style could be where, without giving a prediction away, of course, but would you subscribe to the notion that Williams Zepeda style could cause Shakur Stevenson a lot of problems here?
I think at least it will make it a more entertaining fight than some of Shakur Stevenson's most recent bouts. Like Owen mentioned, we were talking on camera about how much William Zepeda throws, um, per fight. It's like 1,000 punches per fight or whatever, something crazy like that. So he really puts it on his opponents. I just hope that he's not like frozen by the moment or anything, where he's a little bit more gun shy. He might try to fight a little bit more of a smarter fight, but hopefully he does keep that intensity and volume punching that got him to that point, and he doesn't freeze up in the moment. But yeah, I agree with Owen. I don't think that like he has the style necessarily to beat Shakur. Um, but I do think that it is a good fight for him in terms of uh, entertainment value, like helping him get those fights that are a little bit more fun to watch. And I think this will be, at the very least, one of those fights. So, yeah, I don't think that his Cepeda style will really fluster Shakur at all. But I do think that it'll make it more fun.
Yeah, can't argue. One thing Williams Zepeda brings is it's definitely a fun style, a fan-friendly style. And I have to agree with both of you there in terms of, I'm not saying like no spoilers, but before the Tevin Farmer fights that I'd have picked Williams Zepeda to beat Shakur Stevenson, but it's definitely a different answer since them Tevin Farmer fights. Tevin Farmer is a good fighter, albeit, but he exposed a lot of frailties with Zepeda's game in terms of flat feet and a lack of head
Mhm.
movement, especially in that first fight. I know the second fight was a bit more decisive, but even then he didn't really have it all his own way. You have to look at, Tevin Farmer. Shakur Stevenson is just a massively upgraded version of Tevin Farmer. He does most things better. Of course, the interesting one is, Williams Zepeda won't stop coming, and Shakur Stevenson's power, he doesn't have the power to kind of put a dent in Williams Zepeda's onslaught, but I just think he should be too well rounded. I think, as you said, Thomas, it's a perfect opponent for Shakur Stevenson to be in a fun fight, but also to put on a show here. Really, I think Williams Zepeda is tailor made for Shakur Stevenson to kind of shine and be a bit more exciting than what people give him credit for. But I just think it's the bull versus the matador, isn't it? It's really a prime example of that kind of metaphor. But yeah, I think Williams Zepeda, he won't stop coming, he won't stop throwing punches, and he can whack, so it's going to be very interesting. But yeah, I'll stick with you on this one, Thomas. We normally end with predictions, but there is one question I want to ask you after the prediction. So we're going to get to it now. Laying it all down, what is your prediction for this one? Is it and still or is it and the new? Stevenson's a payday. Who wins this?
Yeah, I'm picking and still Shakur Stevenson to win by decision. I think, the verdict will be the same in terms of the result of a Shakur Stevenson fight as his most recent, but I do think it will be a more fun fight to watch um, this time around with Cepeda style. But like you mentioned, Niall, I do think that um, perhaps um, perhaps Shakur Stevenson is going to shine here because of those defensive issues that Cepeda has. I think that might potentially leave an opening for. I mean, he was put down against Farmers, so maybe he could put down Cepeda as well, or hurt him, or maybe even get him out of there. But I'll pick Shakur Stevenson to win by decision.
Yeah, it is a good point there. Like Farmer did put him down. Like I say, Shakur Stevenson doesn't have the power to put a dent in Zepeda, but Farmer's not a big puncher at all either. So, that is an interesting point. But Owen, I'll throw it over to you. What's your prediction for this one? Shakur Stevenson and William Zepeda. Who are you picking?
Stevenson via a very, very wide unanimous decision. Wouldn't surprise me if he won every single round. I think if Stevenson's at his best, Zepeda's one-dimensional to an extent, and I think that will play into Stevenson's hands. I think he can adapt. He can change. He's got a lot more gears to go through. Shakur Stevenson has. He's just naturally much more talented. And it would be for me one of the shocks of the year if Zepeda is victorious.
Absolutely agree. I think, as you said, he could win every round here. I just think, as I said before, this is the perfect opponent for Shakur Stevenson to put on a show, to put on a masterclass. I think he spins William Zepeda on his head. That's not discrediting William Zepeda as a top fighter. He does have a lot of weaknesses, but he is a very, very formidable opponent. But I just think Shakur Stevenson is that good. And I think he's tailor-made stylistically that he'll just do what he wants with him. Really, I think he'll win a points decision as well. Very, very wide. But yeah, I think it'll be a masterclass performance and victory from Shakur Stevenson. But yeah, just before we kind of wrap up there, we're all in agreement with a Shakur Stevenson win. So I kind of expected it to go that way. So I'm going to ask you, Owen, I'll stick with you. We talk about the talent of Shakur. It's a bit of a crystal ball moment, this. If we have a crystal ball to look into the future, he's already done it at multiple weights, winning world titles. Could you see him doing it at more weights, at 140, at 147? Two interesting divisions. 140 more stacked than 147 at the minute, but I know it's looking into the future a bit. But could he win world titles in even more weight divisions?
I don't think he's naturally the biggest lightweight, so I think 147 would be a bridge too far for me, just in terms of size. Nothing to do with ability. I think that may be just a step too far in terms of size, but I think he'd sweep up at 140. If you look at the world champions, you've got Gary Russell, Alberto Puello. I'd back Shakur to beat both of them 10 times out of 10. Um, you've got Teo Lopez. What a fight that is! But again, as we were saying with Tank, what Teo Lopez turns up, Teofimo turns up at his very best. That's an unbelievable. That's a pound for pound fight. But is Teofimo going to turn up at his best or not? That again, you need a crystal ball to answer that question. So for me, I think he could sweep up at 140. I really do. I just think size may be a bridge too far at 147 for me.
Yeah, it's interesting, an interesting prospect, Thomas. Same question. Could we be looking at more weight domination from Shakur Stevenson? How would you see him going? I know, as Owen said, 147 now is a bit too much of a discussion for now. But if he was to move up to 140 even, how would you see him fare against those names?
That would be an interesting move. I would like to see it at some point. I of course I would like to see uh Shakur fight Davis first. Either one of the Davis, either Javante Davis or Keyshawn. But if he were to move up to 140, I think there would be plenty of big fights for him there. And it'll be interesting to see how he deals with some of the bigger fighters in that weight class as well. I do think he would do pretty good. But perhaps that's like the where he'll top out in terms of his career and in big fights and stuff. I think that he'll get to 140, and I could see him being a dominant champion there for a while. But like Owen mentioned, I don't like him at 147 at all. Hopefully he doesn't, go that far.
Yeah, and as you said as well, there is still big fights there at 135 as well. I'd love to see him against a Tank at his best or a Keyshawn Davis. Absolutely. But Owen, as you said, I think he could, and Thomas, I think he could clean up at 140 as well. I really do. And Owen, as you said, Teofimo Lopez, Shakur Stevenson, that's the fight. That is the fight to make. That's a dream. As you said, it's all about what Teofimo turns up. But he
Mhm.
normally turns up when he's in a big fight. It's the ones he's meant to win easily that he switches off and doesn't turn up in. So yeah, hopefully we get to see it. But Shakur Stevenson has got a big task on his hands in this one against the dangerous Mexican William Zepeda. So yeah, that was just our big fight breakdown. Myself, Thomas, and Owen deep diving into Shakur Stevenson defending his WBC World Lightweight crown against the dangerous, heavy-handed, unbeaten Mexican William Zepeda on July 12th in Queens, New York. Of course, part of a huge Ring 3 card with other world title action. Mateus Puello. You've got Shiraz versus Berlanga. This one's going to be a treat, so I can't wait for it. The lads can't wait. Let us know what you think in the comments. Do you agree with our breakdown on this one? Are you going with a Cepeda upset win here? Let us know. Get involved down below. And as always, don't forget, if you're not doing so already, we'd really appreciate it if you could drop a like on this video first of all. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at ESBR Boxing if you're not doing so already, and follow us on all social media. Thomas, Owen, it was a pleasure, and take care.
Likewise, thank you.
Pleasure as always, mate.